Then we have what's called top-down thinking, and this is what we would use for creativity. So the best players are the ones who do so many things without thinking about it that they get to use their thoughts for creative things, seeing the pass that no one else sees, taking a shot when no one else would shoot. And these are the things that when we are coaching or over-coaching from the sideline, when we are over-parenting from the sideline, what happens is we interfere with this. Now, it's actually been scientifically proven that when you take an athlete and you make their subconscious thoughts conscious, it diminishes performance. They took professional soccer players and had them dribble through a course of cones. They timed them. Then they had them go through and think about what part of my foot am I using when I'm going through the cones. And everyone's time got worse. They took professional baseball players and did the same thing. They hit balls and then they asked them to think about your swing trajectory. Is it going up or is it going down? And their hitting percentage got worse. So when we are adding too much information and we are telling kids, giving them technical instructions in the middle of a game, which is not the time to teach, what happens is we are interfering with their performance. The next thing is this idea of mindset. Has anyone heard the work of Carol Dweck? All right, she is amazing. She has a book called Mindset, highly, highly, highly recommended. Dr. Dweck is a researcher from Stanford University, and she spent 30 years studying motivation and performance. And what she has found is that athletes, or anyone in any achievement activity, have two types of mindset, a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Now, fixed mindset individuals, they are results oriented. Your abilities are fixed. So if a player has a fixed mindset, they might say, I got cut from my hockey team, I'm not good at hockey. In school, they might say, I failed my math test, I'm just not good at math. My abilities are fixed and effort means nothing. And this is not a mindset for high performance. On the other hand, Dweck found this growth mindset. And the growth mindset is all about effort. It's all about the process of getting better. I failed my math test, I need to study more. I got cut from the hockey team, I need to practice more. This is the high performance mindset, because what I am today has nothing to do with what I can be a month from now or a year from now with effort and application. Now, as a coach, I used to have two different words for these: uncoachable, coachable. And then what I realized was, for the fixed mindset kids, when I was giving them some coaching advice, they weren't hearing the advice I was giving. What they were hearing was, Coach doesn't think I'm any good, because if I was good, he wouldn't have to coach me. And this was a big aha moment for me. It was a moment when I realized that when you're a coach, you don't coach a sport, you coach a child. And every child learns differently, and every child hears differently. And when you can coach them as individuals, that's how you raise the best players. That's how you have great success. Now, what Dweck found is that the most common way that the fixed mindset is instilled in athletes and in students is through praise. And we live in this world where we think effusive praise, praising our kids over and over, is great. But what she found is that actually some types of praise are incredibly, incredibly harmful. When we praise our kids for their ability, we instill a fixed mindset. When we tell them, you're so smart or you're so talented, we're telling them that effort doesn't matter and that their praise comes from their outcomes. What she found is that when you praise people for effort, then you instill a growth mindset. And what you teach them is that everything can be learned. She did amazing studies all across many ages and both genders, boys and girls, in academics. And children who were praised for effort, in the end of these studies, would improve their performance by 30%. Children praised for abilities, their performance would drop by 20%. So if we want to help our kids get the right mindset, we have to praise their effort. And we have to instill a growth mindset. The next thing we have to understand is a player-centered environment consists of why children play sports. Why do they play? And this has also been studied. The biggest study I found is Michigan State University. And they asked 20,000 kids, why do you play? And the number one reason is because it's fun. They play because they like to learn. They play because they like to be with their friends. They play because they enjoy the excitement of competition. But the number one reason is fun. On this study, for children 12 and under, winning came in at number 13 on the list of why they show up. For teenagers, it jumped all the way to number 9. So what an eye-opener for me as a coach to think that my players had 8 to 12 reasons that were more important than winning that got them to the field every day. By the same token, why did children quit sports? They quit because of criticism and yelling from adults. They quit because they're afraid to make mistakes. They quit because of an emphasis on winning, which leads to a lack of playing time. The same study found that 90% of children would rather play on a losing team than sit the bench on a winning team. And I think that's an amazing statistic because I doubt that I've never had a team where 90% of their parents think that same way. So if we want to create this environment, a player-centered environment, we need more of why kids play and less of why they quit. Now, there's a man named Dr. Dan Freigang. He lives in Utah. And Dan is the sports psychologist for U.S. Soccer, USA Hockey, and the U.S. Ski Team. And I was talking to him about this study, saying, okay, who are these kids that they were talking to? Are these just recreational players? And he said he had the same question, so he repeated the study with the national team athletes in hockey and soccer and skiing. And the results were exactly the same. No matter how good they are, they don't work hockey, they play hockey. They don't work soccer, they play soccer. And when it becomes work, they stop playing, they burn out, they quit. So when we're setting the table for this weekend, we need to create an environment that focuses on enjoyment because it's the number one reason why kids play and why they stick with it. I was reading recently Bobby Orr's autobiography. Has anyone read that? Yeah, a couple of you. It's fantastic. And this is what he talks about over and over and over. How much he loved it, how much he wanted to be there. So, 3 things that all kids need. If we are going to create a player-centered environment, everyone needs 3 things. They need autonomy, they need enjoyment, and they need intrinsic motivation. Those 3 things. This comes straight from sports science. We talked a lot about the enjoyment. Autonomy is ownership. They need control of the sports experience. And they need to be intrinsically motivated. And again, to go back to Bobby Orr's book, this is the 3 things that kept coming back to. How much he loved it, how much he was the one driving the ship. He was the one who said, I want to move away from home when I'm 14. And how much that the experience belonged to him. And he tells a story in the book where Eric Lindros' parents came up to him and said, to his parents and said, how'd you do it? And what did you do? And his dad said, nothing. We didn't do anything. So I think that's really interesting. So what we need in youth sports, and this is again not just a hockey thing, this is a youth sports thing, we need what's called a paradigm shift. We need to not just act differently because we have to. We need people to act differently because they believe differently and see differently, and because they want to do things differently. Now, we could spend the next 2 days and come up with all these great rules and regulations and talk about small-sided games all we want. But the fact is we know that we go back to our communities and there are going to be people who should be here and aren't, who are going to be resistant to any kind of change. And we can sign codes of conduct and we can put lots of things in law, but unless we're going to hold people accountable, it's very hard to compel behavior. So what I believe is when we have a paradigm shift, people will do things differently because they know it helps their kids. And they'll do things differently because they want to. Now what we do at the Changing the Game Project is we travel around to youth sports organizations and we teach people how to bring about this paradigm shift. We teach them how to educate their parents. We teach parents how to set goals and accept their kids' goals and give their kids control. We teach them how to let their kids fail, and that learning to fail through sports is one of the most important things we can ever teach our children. But the single most fundamental thing that we teach them is something I learned about 10 years ago from a man named Bruce Brown. And this has become the basis of who I am as a dad and as a coach. And it's this 5 simple words right here. I love watching you play. If you can convince the parents in your organization to say this after every game to their kids, it changes everything. And I know that idea seems incredibly simple, but it's one of the most powerful things that you will ever see. 2 quick stories. When after I'd written my book, a man named Peter Smith called me. Peter Smith is a tennis coach, University of Southern California. 3 weeks ago, he just won his 5th national title. And he called me up because he also has 2 boys, and they're competitive tennis players. And he was totally lost with his kids. And he said what was happening on the court was affecting their family off the court. And he came to me and he said, when I learned this simple thing, when I learned these 5 words, everything changed. My kids played longer, they played harder, they competed better, they had better results, and when tennis ended, they walked off the court, and I just got to be their dad again. He said it's so different that these kids look at him still, and they're like, who are you, and what did you do with my dad? Because it changed the dynamic so much. I also want to tell you the story of my friend Stephanie. Stephanie has 4 boys, and one of them was a national team soccer player that I coach. He just got back from a tryout at Real Madrid in Spain, one of the biggest clubs in the world. And Stephanie came to me when I was writing my book, and she said, John, give me your best idea, because I'm dying. This rat race of youth sports is killing me. The pressure, the stress. And I told her this. I told her, just love watching your kids play. She kind of looked at me. She's like, really? That's the best you got? I was like, you're not going to sell any books with that junk. That's terrible. So fast forward a year, and I got a letter from Stephanie. And it basically just said, John, a year ago you told me to say I love watching you play, and now it's the only thing that I do. I don't say anything about wins and losses or how they played, just what an honor and a privilege it is to watch them. She talked about how it totally changed the dynamic of how her children play, how much more they play, how they try different sports, how they take chances, how they go to tryouts and get cut, and they know they're going to get cut, but they just want to see if they got better. And it not only changed their life, it changed her life as well. These 5 words change so much, and they can make a big difference in your communities as well. Now, it's not easy to make these changes, and everyone will slip up. The ride home is one of the things that kids talk about all the time when they're asked, what is your worst memory of youth sports? Because it's a time when they're physically and emotionally exhausted, and yet this is the time where so many parents think this is the teachable moment. This is when I'm going to criticize and critique my kid's performance, or that of his coach, or that of his teammates. And it couldn't be a less teachable moment. Now, everyone messes this up. When my son started playing soccer, I was his first coach. So I go out to a 5-year-old soccer first game, and my son walks on the field and goes, nah, I don't want to play today, and walks off. So I'm thinking, it's okay, I can live with that. But the next week, he did it again. And now I was totally embarrassed. I'm like, here I am, college coach, professional player, and I can't even get my own kid to play. What are these parents thinking of me? My son didn't care. He found like a cricket or something. He was perfectly happy. So we get in the car after the game, and he's putting on a seatbelt in the back, and I'm buckling, and I turn around. I'm like, so, TJ. And all of a sudden, wham! Karate chop across my chest from my lovely wife who's sitting next to me. And I turned to her, I'm like, honey, what was that for? She's like, really? Didn't you just write a whole book about this? Can you just drive us home, please? So I said nothing. And the next week he played, and he's played ever since. So what other outcome could I have from that? So I want to leave you with this. When I look at a picture like this of just kids enjoying sport, and when I know the powerful and the massive impact that sport can have on these kids' lives, not only making them better athletes, but teaching them life skills and making them better people, then I know that we have to change the game. We have to give youth sports back to our kids. We have to create a player-centered approach, because it'll get more kids involved, it'll keep them involved longer, and it'll give us the best players at the end of that. And I think that is an idea whose time around the world has definitely come, and I hope you'll help me in spreading that message. Thank you so much.